My husband told me his affair was over. Then I saw the plane ticket. When I found that plane ticket, it felt like holding a piece of paper that burned from the inside out. It wasn't just a travel document. It was proof that the man I had trusted, forgiven, and decided to rebuild with had been rebuilding lies instead. The ticket was tucked inside the glove compartment of his car, half buried under old gas receipts and parking stubs. It was a one-way ticket to Chicago. The date on it? 3 weeks from that day. The same weekend he told me he had a business conference. I remember sitting there, the engine running, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Outside, the world looked ordinary. Sunlight catching on the hood of a neighbor's car, kids cycling down the street, a dog barking somewhere. But inside, my world was splitting open in slow motion. I didn't cry. Not yet. My body went completely still. The kind of stillness that comes when you realize you've been living in someone else's story. A year earlier, my marriage had nearly collapsed. Daniel, my husband of 14 years, had confessed to an affair. It wasn't one of those quick, meaningless mistakes. It had lasted 6 months. Her name was Claire, a woman he'd met through work, someone who understood him, as he put it. I remember the night he told me. The living room smelled faintly of burnt toast and cold coffee. He stood near the fireplace, hands shoved into his pockets like a guilty teenager. "I ended it," he said. "I swear, it's over." I stared at him for what felt like forever. "How long?" He said 6 months. There are moments when your body reacts before your mind does. A hollow feeling in the gut, a cold rush up your neck. That was mine. For weeks after that confession, I couldn't look at him without feeling a tightness in my chest. But we had a teenage daughter, Lily, and 14 years of shared life. Photos, bills, inside jokes, family recipes. You don't throw that away overnight. So we tried therapy. He promised transparency, changed his phone password to one we both knew, started cooking dinners again, even left handwritten notes on the kitchen counter. "Thank you for giving me another chance," one said. And for a while, I believed him. Our home began to feel warm again. Laughter during dinner, movie nights with Lily, his hand finding mine across the couch. I told myself, people make mistakes. Maybe we'd survived it. Maybe I could learn to love him again. My husband told me his affair was over. Then I saw the plane ticket. When I found that plane ticket, it felt like holding a piece of paper that burned from the inside out. It wasn't just a travel document. It was proof that the man I had trusted, forgiven, and decided to rebuild with had been rebuilding lies instead. The ticket was tucked inside the glove compartment of his car, half buried under old gas receipts and parking stubs. It was a one-way ticket to Chicago. The date on it was 3 weeks from that day, the same weekend he told me he had a business conference. I remember sitting there, the engine running, my hands trembling on the steering wheel. Outside, the world looked ordinary. Sunlight catching on the hood of a neighbor's car, kids cycling down the street, a dog barking somewhere. But inside, my world was splitting open in slow motion. I didn't cry, not yet. My body went completely still, the kind of stillness that comes when you realize you've been living in someone else's story. A year earlier, my marriage had nearly collapsed. Daniel, my husband of 14 years, had confessed to an affair. It wasn't one of those quick, meaningless mistakes. It had lasted 6 months. Her name was Claire, a woman he'd met through work, someone who understood him, as he put it. I remember the night he told me. The living room smelled filthy of burnt toast and cold coffee. He stood near the fireplace, hands shoved into his pockets like a guilty teenager. "I ended it," he said. "I swear, it's over." I'd stared at him for what felt like forever. "How long?" "6 months," he said quietly. There are moments when your body reacts before your mind does. A hollow feeling in the gut, a cold rush up your neck. That was mine. For weeks after that confession, I couldn't look at him without feeling a tightness in my chest. But we had a teenage daughter, Lily, and 14 years of shared life. Photos, bills, inside jokes, family recipes. You don't throw that away overnight. So, we tried therapy. He promised transparency, changed his phone password to one we both knew, started cooking dinners again, even left handwritten notes on the kitchen counter. "Thank you for giving me another chance," one said. And for a while, I believed him. Our home began to feel warm again. Laughter during dinner, movie nights with Lily, his hand finding mine across the couch. I told myself, people make mistakes. Maybe we'd survived it. Maybe I could learn to love him again. But then little things began to shift. The kind of changes you can't prove, but you feel. He started coming home later, saying he was catching up on client calls. His cologne changed, something sharper, more expensive than he'd ever worn before. He began jogging in the mornings, saying he wanted to clear his head. At first, I didn't question it. After all, therapy had taught me not to jump to conclusions. Then one night, around 11 p.m., his phone buzzed while he was in the shower. I wasn't snooping. I just glanced at it because it wouldn't stop vibrating. The notification preview showed one line from an unsaved number. "I still can't believe you're really done with me." I remember the exact sound of the water shutting off, the sudden silence that followed. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I put the phone down and walked to the kitchen like nothing had happened. When he came out, towel draped around his neck, he smiled. "You're still up?" "Yeah," I said softly. "Couldn't sleep." He kissed the top of my head before heading to bed. I watched him go, feeling like glass was under my skin. The next morning, I asked casually, "Who were you texting last night?" He froze for half a second, too short for anyone else to notice, but I did. Then he smiled, the kind of smile meant to erase suspicion. "Just Jeff from accounting. He's going through a divorce. Poor guy can't stop talking." He picked up his mug, took a sip of coffee, and added, "Why?" "Just wondering," I said, forcing a smile back. That was the moment I knew. He was lying again. But I also knew I couldn't accuse him without proof. The first time had already shattered us. I couldn't survive another false suspicion. So, I waited. Her. The same woman he'd promised me was gone. I didn't cry this time either. I just sat there, the glow of the screen painting the room in blue light. It was strange. I didn't feel rage or heartbreak. I felt a kind of clarity I hadn't felt in a long time. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what was real. The same woman whose name had poisoned our marriage, whose voice I'd once heard through the static of a phone line when she'd called late at night before Daniel confessed. I thought I'd buried her memory when I forgave him, but now she was back, not in whispers or suspicions, but in print, on a ticket paid for by the man lying next to me. Daniel slept soundly, breathing evenly, one arm slung over the pillow where I should have been. I stood at the edge of the bed for a long time, watching him. The moonlight through the blinds cut pale lines across his face, the same face I'd once kissed with such certainty. And for a moment, I thought, maybe I'll just leave quietly. Let him fly away to her. Let them both rot in their lies. But then I thought of Lily. 14 years old, still calling him her hero. I couldn't let him drag her through another round of deception. If there was going to be a reckoning, it would be on my terms. The next morning, I made pancakes. He came down in his usual way, tousled hair, phone in hand, half a smile. "Something smells amazing." "Blueberry pancakes," I said. "Your favorite." I watched him eat. Calm, happy, oblivious. When he reached for his coffee, I said, "Hey, when's your next trip again?" He looked up mid-bite. "Next month, conference in Chicago." "Right," I said softly, keeping my voice light. "Do you want me to book your hotel, or has the company already done that?" He smiled. "Company's got it covered." A lie, delivered with the ease of habit. "Good," I said, and handed him the syrup. Inside, I felt something settle. Not anger, not despair, just resolve. After breakfast, I dropped Lily off at school and drove to a small copy shop downtown. I made 2 color copies of that plane ticket and the PDF printout. Then I slipped the originals back exactly where I found them. If he wanted to live a double life again, fine. But this time, I wouldn't be the woman who cried and begged for honesty. I'd be the one who ended the game. For the next few days, I played my part. I laughed when he cracked jokes at dinner. I nodded when he talked about work stress. We even went out for ice cream one Friday night, just like old times. He was relaxed, too relaxed, because he thought I was still the same forgiving wife. But beneath my calm, I was watching everything. He started spending more time on calls, stepping outside with his phone pressed to his ear. Once, I followed him quietly to the porch and caught a fragment of his conversation through the breeze. "Don't worry, she's buying it this time." The words hit me like a slap, but I didn't move. I just went back inside, heart hammering. Later, I lay awake beside him and wondered what buying it meant. Did he think I was still that naive woman from a year ago? Maybe he did. Maybe that would be his mistake. By the following week, I had a plan. I didn't want a screaming match. I didn't want broken dishes or a scene that would scar Lily. What I wanted was truth. Undeniable, public truth. So I called our marriage counselor, Elaine, and asked if we could schedule a progress session, something Daniel wouldn't question. Elaine agreed to meet us on Thursday evening. "Just tell him it's about checking in," she said gently. "You sound calm but hurt." I smiled weakly through the phone. Calm is all I have left. That night, when Daniel came home, I told him Elaine wanted to see us again, just to measure how far we'd come. He hesitated. "Do we really need that?" I shrugged. "She said it's part of the follow-up program. Might help us both." He sighed, then nodded. "All right, Thursday it is." And that was that. The night before the session, I sat alone in the kitchen, looking at those copies of the plane ticket. The ink had started to curl the edges slightly from how often I'd handled them. I thought about confronting him right then, tearing the paper in front of his face and demanding the truth. But something told me to wait. The next day would come, and it would come with witnesses. Before going to bed, I looked at Lily's photo on the fridge. Her wide smile, braces glinting under summer sunlight. I whispered to her picture, "I'm doing this so you'll never think it's okay to let someone break you twice." Then I turned off the light and went upstairs. Thursday came. Daniel wore a crisp blue shirt, the one he usually wore for important meetings. I noticed he'd trimmed his beard and put on the same cologne, the new one. "You look nice," I said, tying my scarf. He smiled. "So do you." We drove to Elaine's office in near silence. The hum of the car engine filled the air between us. I could feel the plane ticket folded in my purse like a live wire against my palm. Elaine's office was warm and softly lit, the kind of place designed to make people believe in peace. "How have things been since our last session?" she asked once we sat down. Daniel spoke first, ever the charmer. "Much better. We've really rebuilt trust. We're communicating, spending time together, even planning a vacation." Elaine smiled approvingly. "That's wonderful. And you, Anna, how do you feel?" I took a slow breath. I feel lighter because I finally know the truth. Daniel glanced at me, confused. "What truth?" I reached into my purse, pulled out the folded papers, and placed them gently on the table. "This one," I said. He looked down. The color drained from his face as he recognized the airline logo. Elaine blinked, uncertain. "What is that?" "A plane ticket," I said softly. "A one-way ticket to Chicago. For Daniel and Claire Reynolds." Daniel's lips trembled as he tried to find words that might still save him. "Anna, please, I was going to tell you. It's not what it looks like." I tilted my head, almost pitying him. "Then why does it always look the same, Daniel?" He ran a hand through his hair, his voice breaking. "It's work, I swear. Claire, she's part of the new marketing team. The ticket, it's for a client trip." I smiled faintly. "A client trip booked with our credit card? In her name?" Elaine looked between us, her face pale. "Daniel, is what Anna's saying true?" He hesitated, and that silence was louder than any confession. Elaine sighed softly. "You both came here to rebuild trust, but it seems something deeper is still broken." I nodded slowly. "It's been broken for a long time. I just kept pretending the pieces would fit if I loved him enough." Daniel buried his face in his hands. "You don't understand. I didn't mean for any of this to happen again." "Oh, I understand perfectly," I said, my voice steady. "You just missed the thrill, the lying, the sneaking, the feeling that someone else saw you as special. I understand, Daniel, because I spent years trying to fill that emptiness for you." He looked up at me then, tears gathering in his eyes, and for a split second, I saw the man I'd once fallen in love with, the man who used to leave notes on the fridge saying, "Can't wait to see you tonight." But that man was gone, replaced by someone who couldn't tell truth from convenience. Elaine spoke gently. "Anna, what do you need right now?" I thought for a moment before answering. "Peace." Then I turned to Daniel. You'll get your trip. You'll get your Claire. Just don't come back expecting your family to be waiting. He looked stunned. You're leaving me? I met his eyes and said quietly, No, I'm letting you go. There's a difference. He reached out across the couch. Anna, please, don't do this. We can fix it. I stepped back. No, Daniel, you broke it twice. The first time was your mistake. The second time, it was my fault for trusting you again. Elaine shifted in her chair. It sounds like this is a decision you've been thinking about for a while. I nodded. For a year, I tried to convince myself that forgiveness would heal us. But forgiveness without change is just self-destruction. Daniel whispered, I love you. I looked at him one last time. Then, you should have chosen me when it mattered. The drive home was silent. Not the comfortable kind of silence we used to share. This one was cold, final. When we pulled into the driveway, Daniel sat there for a long moment before turning to me. So, what happens now? I took off my seatbelt, opened the door, and said, Now, I stop being the woman you keep breaking to feel whole. I went inside, packed 2 suitcases, one for me, one for Lily, and left before he could say another word. That night, I booked a room at a small inn by the coast. It wasn't fancy, the kind of place where the wallpaper curls a little at the edges and the ocean hums like a lullaby outside the window. Lily was confused. Mom, are you and Dad fighting again? I brushed her hair gently. We're just figuring things out, sweetheart. But I promise we'll be okay. She looked at me for a moment, then whispered, You're not crying this time. I smiled faintly, because sometimes not crying is the strongest thing you can do. After she fell asleep, I stepped outside onto the small balcony. The sea breeze was cool against my face. For the first time in years, I felt something like relief. The weight of pretending was gone. The lies were gone. All that was left was me. Bruised, yes, but breathing on my own again. 2 days later, my phone rang. It was Daniel. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity, or maybe closure, made me swipe right. His voice was quiet. I wanted to say, I'm sorry. Truly. I didn't reply. He continued, Claire, she meant nothing. It was just distraction. I thought if I could feel something new, I'd stop feeling empty. I sighed. And did it work? He hesitated. No. It just made me realize what I've lost. Good, I said. Then maybe you'll finally learn what love costs when you treat it like it's replaceable. He started crying softly. I don't know how to fix this. You don't, I said. You just live with it. And then I hung up. It's been 4 months since that day in Elaine's office. Lily and I moved into a small apartment near the sea. It's quiet, peaceful, a place that doesn't echo with lies. Sometimes I still catch myself setting 2 plates at dinner before remembering it's just us now. But then I look at her, laughing over homework, humming songs while making tea, and I realize this is enough. Last week, she asked if I missed her dad. I thought for a long time before answering. I miss who I thought he was. She nodded, wise beyond her years. She said, I think that's okay, Mom. Missing someone doesn't mean you want them back. She was right. And for the first time, I felt free. Word spread faster than I expected. Daniel had always cared about appearances. The perfect husband, the devoted family man, the kind who brought flowers on anniversaries and posted smiling pictures on Facebook. So when people noticed my absence in those photos, the questions began. At first, I stayed quiet. I wasn't interested in gossip or revenge, but truth has a way of surfacing, even when you whisper it. It was at a company gathering that it finally happened, the public unraveling. A mutual friend, Karen, invited me to a charity dinner Daniel's company hosted every year. I hadn't planned to go, but something in me needed closure. Not to confront, but to witness. I wore a simple navy blue dress, my hair loose, my heart steady. When I walked in, Daniel froze. He was standing at the far end of the room beside Claire. Their laughter faded the moment they saw me. Karen leaned close and whispered, "Oh, you didn't know she'd be here." I smiled faintly. "Oh, I did." Claire's hand slipped from Daniel's arm. For a moment, she looked small, nervous, maybe even guilty. But I didn't come for her. I came for me. The room went quiet when I walked past them, and I could feel every gaze like a soft hum of curiosity. Daniel followed me quickly, his voice low and desperate. "Anna, what are you doing here?" I turned to him, "Attending a fundraiser. You?" He flinched at the coldness in my tone. "Please don't do this here." "Do what, Daniel? Exist?" He sighed. "You're making a scene." I laughed quietly. "Funny, you didn't mind scenes when you were booking flights behind my back." His jaw tightened. "This isn't the place." "No, it's exactly the place. Because for years, you performed love in front of people. I think it's only fair they see the curtain fall." A few heads turned, whispers rippled across the room. Daniel looked like a man unraveling in slow motion, the image he'd built cracking under the weight of truth. But I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply looked at him and said, "You taught me something valuable, Daniel. That silence doesn't protect dignity. It only delays it." Then I turned and walked away. The following weeks were strange, like learning how to breathe again after holding my breath too long. I started small, morning walks, journaling, cooking meals I actually liked instead of what Daniel preferred. I even joined a local book club, mostly women, some divorced, some widowed, all carrying invisible stories like mine. We didn't talk about men much. We talked about starting over, about how healing isn't linear. Some days you laugh. Some days you break down because a certain song plays in the grocery store. But slowly, I started seeing color again. Lily was thriving at school. She made new friends, joined the art club, and even painted a picture of the ocean that now hangs in our living room. One night, while washing dishes, I caught her humming and laughing. And for a moment, I realized that peace had quietly moved into our home. Not the loud, triumphant kind, the gentle kind that comes after storms. 6 months later, I got a letter in the mail. Daniel's handwriting. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won again. Inside was a simple note. I'm sorry. I know it means little now, but I want you to know I'm trying to become a better man, not to win you back, but because I can't keep living as the man I was. I hope you and Lily are well. Daniel. I folded the letter and placed it in a small box I keep on my dresser. Not out of sentimentality, but because forgiveness doesn't always mean erasing the past. Sometimes it means remembering it with compassion instead of anger. That night, I whispered a quiet prayer. Not for him, but for me. That I never again mistake endurance for love. Life now feels different, quieter, steadier. On Sunday mornings, I take my coffee to the beach. I watch the tide rise and fall and think about how endings aren't always tragedies. Sometimes they're just new tides waiting to carry somewhere else. People still ask if I'd ever take him back. I always smile and say, I already did in the only way that mattered. I took back the part of me I gave away trying to keep him. There's something they never tell you about betrayal. It doesn't just break your heart, it breaks your sense of self. For a while, I thought forgiving him meant forgetting the pain. But real healing isn't about pretending it didn't happen. It's about remembering without bleeding. I used to think I was weak for staying. Now I know I was strong for leaving. Because sometimes love isn't holding on. It's knowing when to walk away. Tell me, would you have done what I did? Would you have confronted him or quietly walked away? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you've ever had to choose peace over revenge, I hope you know that was strength, not surrender.